Could water be the new gold? Our next guest says it may just be the next hot commodity and something that Wall Street has been ignoring for too long. Scott Rickards is the co-founder of the world's first water cost index, Waterfund. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Daniela.
So you built this along with IBM. This is something you say Wall Street has ignored. Tell us a bit how this idea came to be.
Sure. Well, virtually everywhere you look around the world, the cost of water exceeds the price. So what does that mean from a business perspective? It means that most water utilities lose money. If you're an investor and you're curious about what water scarcity can do for your portfolio, how do I get into water, how do I invest in water, you need a benchmark, you need metrics, and you need data. IBM's the leader in big data analytics, so for us it was a natural choice to partner up and build an index that reflects the value of water in as many cities around the world as possible. So we've already covered a lot of the big ones: Singapore, London. We've covered California, 10 cities in California, and we're growing the index every month.
Now, Scott, you really specify that this is a water cost index, not a water price index. Why is the distinction so important here?
Well, when the cost exceeds the price, you're talking about an industry where the actual dollars spent are being spent by investors and government, and they're not recovering those investments through the tariffs they're charging the customers. So like in any business, when the price isn't right, your investments are losing money. And that's a big problem in the water business. Many utilities don't even know they're losing money. That's how much of a dinosaur business the water industry's become. With everything going on in California, with the drought, with Texas being in drought, there's a lot more premium being placed on the financial management of these utilities.
Now,
so that's what the index can do.
Now, since you focus so much on cost, are we paying the right amount for water? I mean, how do you calculate the cost for water?
So we calculate the cost of water as everything from the amortization of the capital expenditures to the interest paid on the bonds, and that's how utilities finance themselves, with debt finance. So the interest is generally a pretty big component, 25% in a lot of cases. And then you've got chemicals, labor, all the normal things you have to run a water business. And the denominator, what we look at and what drives the index numbers more than anything, are the actual deliveries to the customers. So is the water being produced, getting to customers? New York City, until they built a new $3 billion pipe to bring the water into the city, had been losing up to 40% of its water. So that's a huge factor in what your overall cost is.
So how can investors interested in this asset class use the WCI to their advantage?
So as I said, you need a benchmark and you need data to make smart investments. What the index does is it tells you what you need to earn in a given municipality, a given state, a given country to make the targeted return you're looking for. In California, the price of water, according to our index, is $1.59 per cubic meter. I'm not going to invest in a water facility that's not charging its customers at least that amount. So it can be used as a benchmark. In addition to that, it can be used to support what we call blue bonds, which are debt instruments backed by physical water assets that generate a yield based on the value of an index.
Now, you mentioned California, you mentioned Texas. Do you think we're on the verge of a world crisis here when talking water?
So the volume of water in the world actually never changes, which is an interesting fact. But what happens in major cities is you run out of the clean, most abundant water. And that's what's happened in California. In addition to being in drought, the groundwater near the major cities has been depleted. Same story in Texas, same story in most large cities in the world. So yes, we're talking about a water scarcity crisis, but we're talking about, I would argue, a finance and capital crisis at the same time. Why, when interest rates are so low, are more investments not being made?
All right, Scott, we talked blue gold. Now let's get back to yellow gold, the focus of our show. I know you can comment on the price of gold. What's your sentiment right now when looking at the metal?
Well, I'm more of a water expert,
right.
But that said, looking to what the Fed's going to do would be my target as a gold investor. If U.S. GDP is strong and the Fed raises rates, we're looking at probably not too much movement in the gold price. If U.S. GDP is weak, Fed raises rates, I think you could get a pretty interesting upside scenario for gold.
Scott, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Daniela.
And thank you for watching this special edition of the Gold Report. We'll see you tomorrow.